Okay, so now I think I'm actually live to to like Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. I tried to get TikTok to work, but apparently I am not. I got approved for live streaming on TikTok, but it would not. I don't know. I couldn't find my stream key anywhere, so I kind of gave up. But yeah, so today I think we'll see how this is going. There we go. I am live in all the places. See if I can't switch some settings. If with any luck I can customize this. Uh, I can't get subtitles somehow for some reason. Gaming not that. Uh, News and politics. Where'd that come from? Oh, hey, how's it going? Hi, Relocked. Hi, Velkin999. Hi, Kaimatera. For some reason, see, I'm still figuring this out. Uh, Apparently, when I'm Streamlabs is a little too advanced for me, I guess. Like, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I can't see chats from YouTube now. I'm having nothing but trouble. Oh, there I got Velkin999. Your chat came through. I don't know, is that on StreamYard or on Twitch though? Apologies, folks. Still trying to figure this shit out. Apparently, being nearly 50 makes me stupid when it comes to technology. So, I'm hoping that that's. Oh, yeah. So that's on Substack. I get the noise, but I can't see it up on my thing. Oh, here we go. Now I can see it. And shitification coming for you since the doctoral interview. Yes. I am. I'm just clueless. It's not anybody's fault except mine, I'm sure. I don't know what happened before, but I couldn't. I tried to stream at 5 ish, and all it would do was uh, stream. It would only stream to Facebook. So then I had to go and figure out what the hell was going on there, and then yeah, so it's just a big pain in my ass. But with any luck, I'm gonna switch my view, and hopefully you guys can see the screen I'm looking at. Yeah, yeah, that's what we want. We want the flamethrowers with Justin Ling. That's the podcast that I was trying to listen to 2 weeks ago, and uh, could not figure out how to get the sound going through. And with any luck, this will work this time. Uh, so I hope so. Um, so I guess hi everybody. Thanks for being here. This is I guess an attempt at our a series on the rise of right wing radio. I um yeah, and right wing media in general. I got a few different media things that I've saved links for that we will watch, and not all tonight. Obviously, we're just gonna do the first episode of Flamethrowers because the episode itself is 42 minutes, and then any chit chat or like commentary that I have or that you guys have in the chat is all gonna take extra time. So we'll probably just stick to this, and maybe if we might talk about this, everybody attending the White Nationalist Conference caught on film, but from the anti-hate, the Canadian anti-hate network, which is pretty good. a pretty good organization. They did some really good work here, and they got a lot of a lot of people kind of found at this, like coaches and various gym owners and members and whatnot, and like people who coach little kids are at this white supremacist or white nationalist conference, I guess, in I think it was in Toronto, but yeah, so we might talk about that too if there's time. Rachel Gilmore did a good piece on it. I watched a couple TikToks from CBC on it. It's a pretty big deal here in Canada. But without any further nonsense from myself, we'll start listening to this. Let me know if you can hear this. If you can't hear it, then something's wrong and I got to figure this out again. But hopefully I got it figured out enough that you can hear this.
This is a CBC podcast.
This podcast tells the story of how right-wing radio radicalized America. We use examples of what was actually said on the radio, and some of it is offensive. But it's an important part of understanding this story. Just a heads up.
Here tonight is a special man.
It's February 4th, 2020. Inside the House chamber on Capitol Hill, Donald Trump is delivering his final State of the Union address.
Beloved by millions of Americans, he is the greatest fighter and winner that you will ever meet.
Trump gestures to the pews above the chamber towards Melania Trump. Sitting beside her is a man with white hair, snow-white beard, and a hearing aid wrapping around both of his ears.
Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country.
As soon as the Republicans in the chamber hear Limbaugh's name, they jump to their feet.
And Rush, in recognition of all that you have done for our nation, the millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Rush Limbaugh's jaw drops and his mouth just sort of hangs open.
I will now ask the First Lady of the United States to present you with the honor, please.
Just so, like I said, I'm going to interrupt this a few times, but what an absolute joke, right? I know that I don't have any faith in like governments and shit, but like to think that Rush Limbaugh represented freedom for everyone or anyone in America except for himself and people exactly like him is just a absolute joke. But I guess no surprise coming from like Donald Trump, but also like to think like, so this podcast was from 2021. This first episode was released on, it says September 7th, 2021. And it's almost funny now to listen back to this because of how much has happened since since the first Trump term, like, because the authoritarianism is so clear now that it seems like this is almost like, I don't know, I mean, it was easily forgotten now, right? Nobody talks about this being a thing that happened that I hear.
Eyes well with tears as Melania produces a medal, seemingly out of nowhere, and moves to hang it around his neck. He clasps his hands together like a form of silent prayer. Limbaugh thumps his fist into his chest, and then he points down to the big guy on the dais. Kind of like he's saying, "You and me, man."
Reluct said, "I've been finding myself wondering how much even the propagandists matter and how much is the byproduct of the right being intellectually bankrupt." Yeah, I think there is something to that, right? Like they're obviously like incredibly intellectually bankrupt. But I think that there is like at least back then, like right now, I don't think you have very many people being like swayed by propaganda, but at the first bit and like, like before the first Trump term, like Fox News and the propagandists before that, I think they had a big impact on like bringing it forward and making it more mainstream. But yeah, now I don't think there's much, I don't think it matters much because they have the power and they're just using it however they see fit. And of course they're going to just continue. Right. And I don't actually see Trump giving up the seat when it comes time, but we'll see how that goes in the future.
The Democrats in the room sit stone-faced, horrified. The Presidential Medal of Freedom to this guy?
If any race should not have guilt about slavery, it's Caucasians.
This guy.
How many of you guys, in your own experience with women, have learned that no means yes if you know how to spot it?
Really, this guy.
Guy at the laundromat.
Ugh. The Republicans across the aisle are looking on like, hell yeah, this guy. The guy who made the modern American conservative movement into what it is. A movement which, using Limbaugh's playbook, propelled a most unlikely man into the White House. A president whose supporters would storm the doors of this very building on January 6th, 2021.
Yeah, Reluct said, for sure he leaves the presidency feet first. Yeah, that's right. There's no way he's going to just walk out on his own volition, right?
But that moment, when the medal drops onto Limbaugh's shoulders, is the moment when right-wing talk radio cemented its role as central to American politics. This climb, considering where it all began, is almost unbelievable. The story starts with fire-breathing zealots.
Everything we have said was true. They ridiculed us. They held us up in contempt.
Who almost find themselves run off the airwaves.
Give us our liberty back. Give WXUR back to Dr. McIntyre and his people. Let them be happy.
Who pass the torch to hardline conservatives.
And welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It is the Sean Hannity Show.
And conspiracy peddlers.
I know what's going on, and I've had enough. I've had enough of all of it. I've had enough of it.
These broadcasters fan the flames for a new populist ideology. They give a voice to a swath of Americans who felt like they never had one. They energize and then they radicalize the conservative movement. This podcast will explore how they did it and why their conservative message resonated so powerfully and how radio made it all possible. It's the story of Rusty Sharp, a failed DJ who became
Rush Limbaugh,
the most powerful man in radio. It's a story of how militiamen and hate mongers used shortwave signals and the internet to reach millions. It's the story of how radio transformed American politics forever.
The Flamethrowers, How Right-Wing Radio Took Over American Democracy, with Justin Ling.
So 2 weeks ago when I tried to stream, I was listening to this, and that's when I was like, hey, this is what a really good produced podcast listens like. Like, this is what it sounds like. They have the music that's like really sets the tone. They've got like intros, outros, all at the appropriate time. Like, it's not just like a couple of dips like me talking. It's so good. But this is what you have when you have a team of professionals. This is not what you get. Like, there's a lot of people who are like, Some Random Geek says, lurking at work, even though I shouldn't be. But yeah, Hamster is the guy Owen was chatting with. Is a piece of work. Oh yeah. Me and Owen spent quite a bit of time talking about that this Sunday, and that episode will be coming out in 2 weeks. But you can check out Owen McDonald's debate with Hamsters, a neoliberal, over on Owen's channel. It's yeah, quite the event. But yeah, so this is what a professionally produced podcast sounds like. This is like, I don't know. I wish I could achieve this kind of level of quality. I don't have a team around me by any stretch though. So, but we can listen to it here and enjoy it that way.
Let's pick up the story in a suburb of Detroit, 100 years before Limbaugh got his medal. That is where Canadian Priest would prove just how potent radio could be. He was one of radio's first real stars.
As another presidential election approaches, a Roman Catholic priest, for the first time in American history, is seriously involved in national politics.
Some are unpopular, but God hates the hypocrite.
Father Charles Coughlin hailed from Hamilton, Ontario, but was posted to Royal Oak, Michigan in the early 1920s. Coughlin was really of the go big or go home mindset. He built this massive stone cathedral called the Shrine of the Little Flower. It had seating for 600. But Coughlin was Catholic, and Royal Oak was predominantly Protestant. The bombastic new preacher definitely ruffled some feathers. Coughlin would later tell people that he got a welcome present from the Ku Klux Klan. The Klan reserved its ugliest vitriol and violence for Black Americans, but they had more than enough hate in their hearts to also attack immigrants, especially Catholics who were flocking to Detroit to work in the new auto plants. So it's July of 1926. It's late at night. The voice on the other end tells Coughlin to get to the church right now. He arrives to find the...
I'm sorry, I got interrupted again. I just love the quality of this. The sound effects, they paint a picture with the sound, right? Like, it's so good. It's very impressive stuff. If justice was true, the hate mongers would be held as accountable as the people they propagandized to carry out the acts they fetishized. That's Vilken 999. Yeah, I agree. The way that the hate gets spread through that propaganda is definitely somebody is responsible for that, right? Like, maybe I don't know. There's something wrong there for sure.
KK's calling card, a giant flaming cross, on the front lawn of the church. By all accounts, Coughlin was not intimidated by the Klan, but this is one more problem he does not need. This massive church was expensive. The parish owes about $100 per week on their loans, but they're pulling in less than $50 from the collection plate. But in the flickering light of that burning cross, he finds a bit of inspiration. He is going to light his own fire.
Real peace and real democracy must be born of Christian justice and Christian charity.
Coughlin reaches out to a local Detroit radio station, WJR. Commercial radio is still pretty new. The station has only been broadcasting for about 4 years. And Father Coughlin starts delivering Catholic sermons on the radio.
Good afternoon, my friends. The feast of the resurrection of Christ from the dead is a feast of peace and joy.
Coughlin is made for radio. He has this deep, rich voice with an almost musical cadence.
Therefore, this week I appeal to you. If you are a lover of real peace and real democracy, insist that America will keep clear of foreign entanglements.
In those early years, the late 1920s, Coughlin's broadcasts are mostly religious, with just a soupçon of anti-war activism.
Insist that America shall avoid entering the blood business. Insist that our prosperity shall not be builded upon cannon.
I don't know if other people have a similar experience to me, but there's like in my hometown of Weyburn, there was like regularly like religious radio, like regular religious programming on the radio. Like I don't know how often it was. It seemed like every time I was stuck listening to it kind of later at night, it would be stuff like that, or really early in the morning before work or whatever. And yeah, it I always turned it off so that I could listen to like music or whatever, because to me it just was like annoying noise in the background. But I guess if you're a religious person, maybe that's something that would appeal to you, is hearing these sermons on the radio in the morning.
Howitzers, poison gas, military airplanes, and all things else which are classified as the merchandise of murderers.
But then, in 1929, the stock market crashes. America tumbles into the Great Depression. People are down and out.
So well made.
They're waiting in bread lines. Children are going hungry in the street. And America was pissed off. The bankers and the plutocrats,
who live in their palaces and travel in their yachts,
they had gotten them into this mess. The roaring 20s of the upper classes had crashed into poverty and hunger for the working class.
Oh, you poor laborers and farmers, we have tried time and again to tell you that there can be no resurrection for America until Congress begins to coin and regulate the value of money.
Coughlin steps out of this affable preacher role. He's now a conduit for a very real and very understandable anger.
You want that. You voted for that. You have that. And it's time that you take that.
As the voice of outrage, Coughlin becomes a sensation.
Out from Royal Oak goes a voice that takes the radio public by storm. Soon the priest is preaching to untold millions in the name of shy, simple St. Therese. Father Coughlin becomes a full-fledged national character.
Today, we might call Coughlin a populist. He's anti-communist, but he's also anti-capitalist. He supports unions, but not the more radical auto workers union. He's left of center, but he's not that far left. Coughlin's audience is estimated at 40 million. At that time, that's a third of America. Limbaugh, at his height, would only have about 1/20th of Americans listening. There are these stories of referees stopping youth football games just before 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons, just so that the parents, coaches, and players could get to a radio to hear Father Coughlin. His money woes, by the way, are solved. Donations are pouring into his church. So much so that with all this new wealth, he builds a 28-foot-tall stone crucifix. Coughlin said it was a cross that the KKK could not burn.
His secretarial staff looks like big business. It must be ready to answer 1 million letters in a single week. Exuberant in his power, he rushes up and down the land, this servant of the church, now a master of politics.
Coughlin had spent years railing against the political class. But now he turns his attention to a new politician that he can really get behind.
More than a political campaign, it is a call to arms.
Someone who echoes his distrust of the bankers and big business. A real champion for the everyman.
Give me your help, not to win votes alone, but to win in this crusade to restore America to its own people.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
This
is the day, despite all opposition to the contrary, that you remain steadfast behind the one man who can save this civilization of ours.
Coughlin hits his listeners with the slogan to underscore the choice ahead of America.
It is either Roosevelt or ruin.
His support for FDR.
So begins the long line of churchers endorsing politicians. He at least wasn't like the worst of the worst, but like, oh yeah, it's it's funny to me the way that they even this show or Justin Ling framed the perspective of Coughlin as left-ish or like left of center, but not extreme left. Like it seems like what you might call like your progressive kind of, but who knows? Obviously it doesn't end well, I don't think, but
doesn't go unnoticed by the Democrats. Roosevelt actually invites Coughlin out for lunch to discuss the effects of the Great Depression. In the so-called Radio Priest, FDR sees a new way to reach the masses. In Roosevelt, Coughlin sees a vehicle for his social justice calling. And the next thing you know, Coughlin is invited to speak at the 1932 Democratic Convention. And he also snags an invitation to FDR's inauguration in 1933.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
As president, FDR recognizes the visceral, yet intimate power of radio.
My friends, I want to talk for a few minutes with the people of the United States about banking.
Through his fireside chats, he enters into America's living rooms as a trusted guest.
I want to tell you what has been done in the last few days and why it was done and what the next steps are going to be.
So when you think about FDR and those famous fireside
relocked, damn Coughlin blazing the rat-lipped right-wing ghoul path. Truly a visionary. Yeah, that's right. I seem to recall, like, listening to this series had me thinking at the time in 2021, like, that there could be a way to reach people through something like radio. I mean, although obviously the time of radio is sort of past, and like now most people are getting their stuff from like podcasts or like YouTube. If you had like an actual show with actual reach that actually had like radical politics or like at least compassionate politics meant to improve the lives of people, I always feel like that's something that could make an impact. But I'm not seeing it. Like, I see lots of shows and I see lots of like YouTube channels and lots of podcasts out there, but a lot of times they don't get the reach, or they aren't reaching the people that they can convince that would be on, kind of on the fence or whatnot. I don't know. I once thought that there was some real potential in the idea of reaching people through media like this, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Chats. It's not a stretch to think that Charles Coughlin was an inspiration.
And it is up to you to support and make it work. It is your problem, my friend. Your problem no less than it is mine. Together, we cannot fail.
Coughlin is no longer that small-town pastor fighting anti-Catholic.
Relock said, I appreciate the optimism. I think the thing you may be missing is that right-wing radicalization is a process that starts as soon as we learn to talk. And then Velkins999 said, it would give me something to listen to in my old car. That's it. Yeah, that's NPR. Yeah. No, I think you're right, Relock. you can't. I mean, the kind of media needs to be there for people who are already on the path to like a more radical worldview or even a more just generally progressive worldview, but also like we can't be the key. We can't be the thing that starts them on the path. There has to be some other reason so that they come and listen to us. And like you say, like, oh yeah, that's not NPR. And yeah. Yeah. So it can't be just us all by ourselves, I guess, out here. We have to, I'm reading a book for an upcoming interview with Lewis. I can't remember his name entirely. Their name? But the book is called Radical Unlearning. And one of the things that is popping out to me while I'm reading this book is that it's the personal conversations that we have with people in our lives that love us, that we love, that they care about our opinions. And if we approach them in a certain way, we might challenge them. We may have difficult conversations with them, but the fact that we are there to do it, that's the key to these kind of like ideas, I guess. Oh yeah. All the weird noises. I'm getting used to this Streamlabs thing. I'm sorry. I'm losing my train of thought so easily. But yeah, like, so the radical unlearning idea is that like we have to as individuals on some level, like there is no mass way to do this achieving of radicalization in the direction that we think is the best. It's just, yeah. Submarine Geek is lurking on Twitch as well. Well, that's nice to see. Thank you, Submarine Geek. So I guess I'll hit the play button instead of rambling on anymore.
Yes. He isn't worried about foreclosure anymore. But then he falls out with the White House over currency policy.
And so, Mr. Roosevelt, who was very loquacious in 1933 about driving the money changers out of the temple, is now bent upon another policy. I think driving the workmen out of decent annual wages.
And when FDR begins forging ties with Joseph Stalin, Coughlin is outraged. He is vehemently anti-communist. In the 1936 campaign,
yeah, unlearning is a huge process for sure. It's although some people, I guess what I'm learning in this book is that it hits different people differently, and depending on their investment in the people that they have to change their mind about how they see them. Yeah. But
he flips the script on his slogan. Roosevelt or ruin becomes Roosevelt and ruin. Coughlin even starts his own political party. And this is where things take a pretty dark turn.
The anti-communism is too strong in Coughlin, eh? Relocked. Absolutely. Ego death and the pain of that are not easy sells in my experience. Yeah. Yeah. And my future guest's name is Lewis Raven Wallace, and they are a journalist and writer, and they talk a lot about how like cognitive dissonance, which I've read a decent amount about myself, which is it's just super, super hard to be like, yeah, to get people to change their minds, especially if they identify with what you're trying to get them to change their mind about.
He says that Jews in Germany are to blame for their own persecution.
Communistic Jew and Gentile, who have been responsible and will continue to be responsible in great part, both for the discriminations and the persecutions inflicted upon the Jews as a body.
The bankers and the plutocrats he was warning about a few years ago, well, now they're part of a shadowy cabal, an international plot to rule the world. He cites the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, an anti-Semitic work of fiction that purports to reveal an international Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah, fully fake.
The Jews and the communists, he said, they were hell-bent on taking over America.
Members of the Jewish race from all over the world predominate. Every member of the Foreign Office, Press, Censor Bureau is a Jew. Little men of Russia who held in responsible positions, heads of offices, trusts.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, the anti-Semitism. I suppose for anyone who is new to the stream, let's give you a warning. There's some offensive stuff being said here. And I think it's as much as he's going to play the radio that of the time on this podcast that we're listening to, that there's going to be a significant amount of that. So I apologize for that. I know that it's not cool to hear.
Are mostly Jews.
Coughlin has totally shed his left-wing credentials. He
Reload. The Tsarists really hit a home run with the PEZ. I'm not sure I get I'm not sure I understand the comment.
Goes on the airwaves to openly praise Hitler and Mussolini. All of this would later earn him a nickname, the father of hate radio. By 1938, war in Europe looks inevitable. The persecution of Jewish people under Nazi rule is horrifyingly apparent, and Coughlin's backers have had enough, so they ditch their one-time star. His station calls out his many misstatements of fact. The Federal Communications Commission, started by FDR just a few years earlier, had warned that it would not allow the airwaves to be debased. In present-day terms, he is canceled and deplatformed. That's basically it for Father.
Yeah, the protocols came out from the Tsar's regime to justify pogroms. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, actually, that should have made sense to me. Sorry. Like I say, my brain hasn't been working that great lately.
Charles Coughlin, radio star. In 1939, he's dropped from national radio and returns to life as a parish priest in Royal Oak. Coughlin was radio's first real political celebrity. He weaponized bombast, but he met his listeners where they were at. He sat in their living rooms and echoed their concerns. He helped propel a president to power and tried to have a say in running the country from behind a microphone. But Coughlin fell into conspiracy theories and hatred as a way to energize and galvanize his listenership. And he would not be the last.
That's a marvelous thing. I've been broadcasting for a long time, but this will be the first time the radio audience will be able to both see and hear me broadcasting at the same time.
You may have heard that video killed the radio star. Well, it's not exactly true. Television certainly became all the rage after the Second World War. As the burgeoning American middle class started putting TV sets in their living rooms, the big broadcasters pulled resources from local radio stations and poured them into TV. In 1945, the major networks owned 95% of American radio stations. 7 years later, it's just less than half. So local stations are left to fend for themselves. Suddenly, they're looking for cheap programming. Ideally, people who will pay them.
I'm really curious if Coughlin was involved in the supplements and the MLMs of his day. I don't know, but I guess in a sense, religion was the supplements and the MLMs of the day. So I guess he was, but yeah, no, that's pretty good.
For the airtime. Also, regulatory barriers start coming down, and that creates another big boom.
FM radio. Warm, rich sound. Great for music.
And that means that back on the old AM dial,
Hello?
radical voices on the right and the left who haven't been able to find a spot on the airwaves suddenly have a ton of bandwidth to choose from. They can also cobble together a national network for super cheap.
Velkin 99. He probably sold radioactive pills or something. Yeah, something like that. Snake oil, like literal snake oil.
And on top of I see the phone lines lighting up, and it looks like we have a caller on line too.
My name's Paul Matsko, and my book is The Radio Right, How a Band of Broadcasters Took on the Federal Government and Built the Modern Conservative Movement.
This new format is cheap, and there's a low barrier to entry. And the reach is enormous.
I can call in and air my opinion. And so folks who, are this unmet demand of kind of just grassroots, ordinary folks who are not happy with the political consensus of the 1950s are able to find each other and feel connected to a national movement.
During the day, AM radio's range is pretty limited. But at night, you have what are known as clear channel stations. They can pump out 50,000 watts. That's why they earned the name Flamethrowers.
The Flamethrowers.
Yeah, we get it. It's the name of the show. He said the name of the show. It's very exciting.
With Justin Ling.
So especially at night, you're reaching homes, cars, and truckers straight across the country. That is millions of listeners. And this isn't like television. You're not just sitting there and watching. You're being told, hey, call in, join us.
That sense of interconnectedness across time and space is very powerful for social movement organization, political movement organization.
This audience has been out there waiting the whole time. What's new is how much radio has started to talk to them.
And so I think we focus too much on demand and not enough on shifts in supply. And that's why this rise of radio, I think, plays an underappreciated role in the rise of the new right.
You start seeing the rise of these stations that offer all talk all the time.
It was a torrent. I mean, you could go 20 all day, every day and listen to nothing but right-wing radio.
The NAACP is trying to use the American Negro to advance.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if they really get into that much in this series, but we will have other series that we're going to listen to and watch that definitely link Red Pill YouTube to the media that was before it. That's, something we'll have on another day, I assume. Because I'm not sure if this series got into that. Definitely not in this episode anyway, I don't think.
Liberal white men's political biasness.
And that really is new on a national basis in the 1960s.
Well, it appears to...
Oh, and Velkin999 said, I kind of miss people calling into radio talk stations. It's like the original version of posting, but with real people instead of profile pictures. Yeah. And you still got some of the real, wild comments and the real, strange call-ins. You hear... I'm sure everybody who's watching this also listens to Knowledge Fight. So Alex Jones still does call-ins sometimes, and he gets those kind of he'll get a lot of those cranks too still.
Right, that the House Judiciary Committee really started something yesterday when they tried.
There were more than a dozen right-wing radio broadcasters that aired on more than 100 stations nationwide by the early 1960s. And for every one of those national guys, there's dozens of kind of local guys who are on 10 stations or on 20 stations, 3 stations.
For the stations and the companies, there's no particular ideological quest at play. Conservative talk is just cheap.
They're just trying to make a monthly budget, right? They don't have time for this highfalutin, elevating the listener type stuff.
These right-wing hosts also tap into something really visceral that might also sound really familiar.
This sense that is common in conservatism, a sense of embattlement, the idea that everyone else is out to get you.
Everything we have said was true. They ridiculed us. They held us up in contempt. They questioned our motives. Even the administrations moved against us.
It sounds so familiar. Like when you think about like where people are now politically and how like every conservative is like whining about the certain group, like the Democrats when they're in power, how they're against them, and like white guys are always complaining about feminism being against them, and like anti-racism is now like it's a reverse racism, and like it's never stopped being about playing the victim. There was a comment somewhere, I'm not sure where. Just Vulcan 999 laughing.
That is very much part of that message even back then. But this is the moment. The 1960s is when that is learned. It's a learned habit.
At the forefront of this new wave is Carl McIntyre.
Good morning, everybody. This is Carl McIntyre, the 20th Century Reformation Hour broadcast originating in Collingswood, New Jersey.
Like Coughlin before him, McIntyre starts out by giving the people what they really want: lengthy sermons.
Our Father, we're thankful.
Is that what
for
the
this
people
broadcast.
really want? Oh my
We
God.
thank thee that thou didst provide it, that we can use these modern means of mass communication to get through to millions.
The 20th Century Reformation Hour was exactly what it said on the tin: organ music, a homily, and a monologue. But those monologues were mostly about two things. Two big threats to America. The first was communism.
What are we going to do about this creeping socialism that ties us all up in some collectivistic knot?
This creeping
What
socialism.
are we going to do about these Marxian ideas and this Marxian
Alex, too.
virus that seems to beset us and gets mixed up with Christian ideas when they identify with the kingdom of God?
And the second was ecumenicism, or the progressive wing of Christianity. And that was represented by the National Council of Churches. The NCC, as all the kids call it, would be McIntyre's enemy and his obsession until the bitter end.
Whether it's via the UN, via control of the Kennedy administration, whether it's the National Council of Churches, it's the commies are going to come and get us.
If you want to know what McIntyre was all about, you only have to listen to the venom in his voice when he says the word secularism.
This ecumenical secularism that I was telling you about yesterday. There's a complete realignment taking place in the religious world. And it's a strange thing when those of us who believe what the church has always believed, before this liberalism and social gospel came in, somehow or other we become the fanatics and we become the so-called right-wingers.
Yeah.
He loved going after the National Council of Churches, and he just loved accusing them with no real evidence, right, of being Soviet sympathizers and Soviet plants even.
McIntyre is hardly an outlier here. Most of the biggest radio voices share his feverish obsessions.
This is
It's time to pray is the whole reason we have Knowledge Fight. Yeah, that's right. It's pretty good stuff.
not a political war. This is not an economic war. It is not even a military war. It is a religious war at bottom.
Clarence Mannion was the Dean of Law at Notre Dame, a committed Catholic and a big radio guy.
And the communist movement cannot succeed in an atmosphere of religious belief and religious practice and religious self-government.
And Billy James Hargis. He led what was called the Christian Crusade.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe
that the National Council of Churches is an instrument of Satan.
These lines of attack were a very successful formula, certainly for McIntyre.
In 1956, Carl McIntyre is airing on 2 radio stations nationwide, one station up in Pennsylvania, one in Georgia. By 1960, he's on more than 100 radio stations, and by 1964, he's on more than 400 radio stations.
Now, I bet you've never heard of Carl McIntyre. I confess I hadn't either before I started working on this series. But it is staggering just how much influence McIntyre had on the conservative movement in America. The incredibly influential National Review magazine had 73,000 subscribers. Well, McIntyre had 20 million listeners. You may
relocked. The Christian argument against communism is always the hardest one to wrap my head around. Yeah, no, that's right. It's like they don't even realize that, like, Jesus was in favor of giving to the poor. like they know that they're supposed to be giving to the poor. They talk about it all the time. They know that they're supposed to be sharing with their fellow man and loving thy neighbor and all that shit. Somehow it gets lost in translation when you talk about the economic system that they live under. It's very strange.
Of the Southern strategy. That was the Republicans' effort to pick up pro-segregationist conservative Democrats. Well, people like McIntyre, they were instrumental to that effort.
He's saying, as a Northerner, it's not racist for you to be in support of segregation. He's really telling them a message that they want to hear. He's validating their support for segregation.
McIntyre may have been based in New Jersey, but fully half of his stations were in the South.
So in this regard, I think of right-wing radio, of hosts, conservative radio hosts outside the South who are typically Republican. They play a kind of John the Baptist role, preparing the way for the partisan transformation of the South from...
Yeah, Vulcan 999, tale as old as time. They don't know what communism is. That's actually true. Yeah, 100%. They generally... whatever the propaganda of the time was, right? Like the anti-communist propaganda started pretty early, as we saw, or as we heard. So, yeah.
Democrat to deep Republican. They do so by playing on racist, segregationist fears.
And there's another pivotal moment that McIntyre is right in the center of. It comes just as McIntyre and his ilk are building this fear of a fifth column, the Red Menace, creeping Bolshevism, Uncle Joseph's secret plot, the Lenin... You know what? No, I'm just going to let Paul explain.
You really can't understand the American political scene in the 1960s without realizing how pervasive conspiracy theorizing was on both sides of the aisle, and how much of the political discourse at the time was just driven by paranoid fears of dangerous others.
There are some who will say, it can never happen here. But this is the story of how it could happen in 7 days of intrigue.
A lot of the top hit movies of the time period, it's all about a right-wing, an authoritarian coup and taking over the government out of the paranoid fear of communism. You think of 7 Days in May.
The seventh day, when the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff dared the President of the United States to stop the conspiracy that couldn't be proved.
Dr. Strangelove.
For more than a year, ominous rumors had been privately circulating among high-level Western leaders that the Soviet Union had been at work on what was darkly hinted to be the ultimate weapon, a doomsday device.
And this brings us to the moment that McIntyre proves just how powerful this anti-communist hysteria really is. I'm talking about, yep, we're here, say it with me, it's the Polish ham boycott of 1962. I know you were wondering when I'd get to the Polish ham boycott of 1962.
And I was not wondering about the Polish ham boycott of 1962. I had no idea that was... And I've listened to this series before. That's one of those things that kind of slipped right past my brain. It never stuck.
Well, here we are. At this point, the Cold War is just heating up, and John F. Kennedy is anxious to prove he is tough on communism. He wants to use new trade deals to drive a wedge between the Soviet Union and some of its satellite states. McIntyre, meanwhile, is at the height of his power and popularity.
The carrot was, if you are friendly to the US, you're friendly to the West, to Western Europe, we'll normalize trade relations with your country. We will lower tariffs. And then maybe we can even peel some of those countries behind the Iron Curtain, some of the Eastern Bloc countries, away from the Soviet zone of influence.
But the JFK White House clearly was not prepared for a Miami chiropractor named Jerome Harold.
He was concerned about the regularization of trade with Cuba, which was also part of this. It was Cuba and Eastern Europe.
Harold starts a local boycott.
His little boycott, quixotic little local group, gets an assist from right-wing radio hosts who, when they hear about this, they think this is great.
And right-wing radio picks up the cause. Then suddenly the crusade becomes really focused on ham because of a poem about ham.
We trade iron ore for canned Polish ham. The slave farmers starve while our Uncle Sam settles back to enjoy the communist roast as the ore arrives at the Polish coast. Our State Department encourages this trade. So eat up, my son. It's a cheaper priced grade. It's inspected by men from a communist land who started the war in South Vietnam. They fashioned a bullet from that iron ore, and to stop it, your son is called to the core. Killed in action, reads the brief telegram. Correction. Killed in your kitchen by a Polish ham.
Jesus Christ.
It's amazing.
What
Worst
a joke.
Dr. Seuss poem ever. But this poem about evil ham, it goes viral thanks to Carl McIntyre. A mother sent him a copy of this poem along with a note that said,
"My son is in Vietnam. How long must I endure this?"
Put yourself in the shoes of this housewife. Your son is in Vietnam, and a broadcaster tells you the bullets that could kill your son. You could get a telegram any day saying your son has been killed, and he could be killed because of things like imported Polish hams.
McIntyre declares war. He dispatches a legion of angry housewives on missions called card parties. They march into grocery stores.
The past was so much the same as now, but also so wild. A poem, really? Yeah, no kidding. It's pretty hilarious. I'm just listening to this going like, this is the same rhetoric that they use now for sure, right? Like they talk about like the cause being something else, like it's China's to blame or it's Russia's to blame. And I'm not a fan of China or Russia. I'm not defending them in any way. But like it's always a scapegoat and never an analysis of how your own society is running, right? Like why are your kids in Vietnam in the first place? It's in defense of the empire and capitalism. Like it has nothing to do with fucking the ham and just a fucking joke. Yeah, same playbook almost. I'm realizing that nothing in BioShock is satire. Oh fuck, eh? Oh man, it's like literal, just copying the exact same shit that was said. Yeah.
The country armed with stacks of cards they had drawn up. They start sticking these cards everywhere they'd fit, inside suit pockets, under packages, all over the stores. These cards are full of anti-communist messages, warning shoppers to steer clear of the Eastern European meats. And all over America, it works.
If you want to create an army of motivated grassroots activists, give them that taste of power.
The Polish embassy says the trade boycott causes a $5 million drop in exports to America. That's about $44 million in today's bucks.
It's the power of a national right-wing media ecosystem, this new radio right, to pick someone or something from relative local obscurity and amplify it on the national stage. So to me, that story is a testament to the power of right-wing media.
The cost of freedom is always high.
This is a huge wake-up call for the Kennedy administration.
But Americans have always paid it.
As the Kennedy White House is figuring out how to take on this right-wing radio problem in '62, one advisor writes a memo.
What is a good example of this power, of this grassroots that these broadcasters have? And he settled on, quote, the card party movement that invaded supermarkets which sell Polish hams.
The administration invites a couple of union leaders, the Reuther brothers, to suggest some strategies. And they draw up a plan.
Well, I call it the most successful censorship campaign in modern American history.
At the time, right-wing broadcasters were technically educational nonprofits. That means any contribution could be written off against your taxes. Suddenly, that's at risk.
But if I sent a lobbyist to Washington, D.C., they would have legal grounds to take away the tax-exempt status of Christian Crusade in 24 hours.
Out in Oklahoma, Billy James Hargis is spitting mad.
The National Council of Churches sent 75 lobbyists to Washington this week, but nobody questions their tax-exempt status.
Billy James Hargis loses his tax-exempt status.
All of this is against the law.
He only got it back after an expensive 8-year court battle, during which he really couldn't raise any money.
But ladies and gentlemen, these liberals are a law unto themselves. They're not a people of law. They are a people of lawlessness.
But that wasn't all. The White House also instructs the FCC to get serious about enforcing something called the Fairness Doctrine. As a condition of their license, broadcasters have to present issues of public importance, and they have to do it in a manner that was fair and balanced. It had been on the books since 1949, but had never really been enforced. The Kennedy government was giving it new teeth. In 1963, they issue a so-called clarification, which gives examples of the kind of speech that was a problem.
It is immaterial,
said the FCC ruling,
whether a particular program is presented under the label of Americanism, anti-communism, or states' rights.
In other words, all the right-wing tropes. It was open season.
Liberal interest groups start filing Fairness Doctrine complaints. That generates a paper trail of Fairness Doctrine complaints that the FCC can then act on.
But if you're going to generate complaints, someone has to listen to all those hours of radio. Several progressive organizations leaned into this effort, including the National Council of Churches. That's the same progressive group that Billy James Hargis called
an instrument of Satan.
And then the White House hits right-wing radio even harder. They rule that insulted parties have the right to reply on air for free. And beyond that, they can demand transcripts of radio shows.
You hear an attack, you go to the radio station, demand the transcript, they look it up, and then you can use that to file, have evidence for your Fairness Doctrine complaint.
This is a giant hassle for the likes of Carl McIntyre.
It's a terrible thing that's happened in this country.
He takes to the airwaves and he rails against the government.
And the FCC's put this so-called weapon of the Fairness Doctrine in the hands of our enemies to go and harass stations.
How dare we be held accountable for the things that we say? It's unacceptable. You cannot attack me for the things that I say and do. What do you mean? This is not fair. This is the opposite of fair.
All the abuse that comes from that area.
The Kennedy administration's tactics, they work. By 1967, a third of right-wing radio programs had gone off the air. Stations were dropping them left, right, and center, mostly right, because they were just too much of a liability. Facing ruin, McIntyre makes a desperate move. He buys his own station, WXUR in Philadelphia. He figures at least this way he won't be at the mercy of station owners. This is McIntyre's last stand.
Vulcan 99. Not the consequences of my actions. Exactly. Oh, man. It's just ridiculous.
And he goes all in.
He actually puts his life insurance policy, he puts a second mortgage on
the building that his seminary is housed in. So there's a lot on the line here. And there's a lot of opposition from the local affiliates of the National Council of Churches.
After a 2-year court battle, the FCC rules against McIntyre. He loses his license, but he has one last trick up his sleeve.
He buys a World War II converted minesweeper, outfits it with a massive radio station antenna, and sails it just off the coast in kind of international waters off of Cape May, New Jersey.
Pirate
I
radio.
tried really hard to get a converted minesweeper for this program, but my coward bosses said no.
Give us our liberty back. Give WXUR back to Dr. McIntyre and his people. Let them be happy. A permanent license to every radio station and get our men out from under the shadow and the cloud that they're living under.
But that doesn't work either. On July 4th, 1973, McIntyre delivers one last broadcast on WXUR.
WXUR died tonight.
That's unhinged. I can almost respect it. Yeah, no shit, eh? It's like, fuck the government. I'm going and I'm doing my thing anyway, even though they're like obviously hateful monsters, but like that's a pretty ballsy move.
There's one issue, freedom of speech, free exercise of religion. My religious and liberal opponents were successful in securing the aid of the federal government to silence a voice of a religious minority. My friends, we shall wait while we join in singing Nearer, My God, to Thee, and this will be the final word as the station proceeds to sign off and to conclude its ministry until God...
Relock. Damn, the me and my homies on a boat plan failed. Yeah. Didn't work. Oh well. Shit, eh?
Speaks otherwise.
By the early 1970s, right-wing radio is in ruins. The biggest stars, who used to be on hundreds of stations, now appear on a few dozen. Owners have been totally cowed by the fairness doctrine. And as talk radio declines, so does the social movement that had been such a powerful force in the Polish ham boycott.
If the radio right provides this kind of organizing principle, this way of getting activists on the ground feeling connected to each other, feeling like they're part of a movement that's bigger than themselves, getting advice and direction from those hosts, if you remove that, well, you remove that key organizing principle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good night and goodbye for a few days. Here it is.
Jeez.
On the next episode of The Flamethrowers, a president launches a golden age of conservatism.
The Americans living in this land today. There isn't any problem we can't solve if government will give us the facts, tell us what needs to be done, and then get out of the way and let us...
Relocked. I guess that proves me wrong on the propagandists' front taking. I guess, eh?
Have at it.
And pulls the...
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess next one we're going to listen to yeah, Milk at 999. No, not Reagan. Yes, I think we get to listen to Reagan. Yeah. Relocked. Wrong on the taking away propagandists front. Yeah. Yeah. So next one, it's Reagan. So there's only like a minute left. It's all, thanks for listening to this show and all that stuff. So yeah, this I think is a really good podcast. Obviously it's done by the CBC, which is an interesting outlet to talk about the American radio history, but and we have our own radio people here that we're not great, but I think next time we're also going to be hearing a lot, because the episode is called What a Rush, but I think we're going to be hearing more stuff about Rush Limbaugh. I guess it's not that late. We can talk a little bit about this article here from the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, titled "Everybody Attending White Nationalist Conference Caught on Film." Photos show who organized and attended a white nationalist networking event in Vancouver, BC. It wasn't. I was thinking it was Toronto for some reason. Including Hammerskins, Active Clubs, and Second Sons. So one of the things that I learned this week is that, like, right now, the white nationalist networks in Canada have kind of like three arms of the movement. And there's like these active clubs, which is like where they train, and like they train to fight, and they train with weapons, and they exercise and lift weights and shit. And then one of them is like a political arm, and then one of them is like a propaganda arm. And so they've got this kind of structure that isn't really like, as far as I can tell, an official structure, but it's consistent enough that it shows up. So they say on July 26th, approximately 50 people attended Exiles of the Golden Age, a networking event and conference in Vancouver, BC, organized by white nationalists. Some of the organizers have ties to the Vinland Hammerskins, a racist skinhead group with decades-long history of criminality and violence. Other organizers and attendees are part of active clubs, white nationalist fitness and combat sports clubs that emerged as a response to the alt-right movement, which was seen as too online and too discredited. They're like, those Nazis aren't fit enough, I guess. So they had to be like, we're gonna get more fit. So that's what active clubs are. Velka 999 Exiles, man, I wish. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, I wish they were exiled. Advertised near exclusively in white nationalist online spaces, promotional social media posts for the event included symbolism popular with neo-Nazis, including the Kolvrat sun wheel and a table with an inlaid Sonnenrad. The logo they created for the event uses the version of the sun rune used by Hitler's Schutzstaffel. And the promotional poster for the event features 3 Roman soldiers saluting. Relocked. Also a Jim Bro MMA recruitment line. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing we need is Nazis that are like fucking fit, eh? I prefer the online ones that, you can punch and then they stop showing up at things. The logo they created for the event, the promotional poster also featured 3 Roman soldiers saluting, a salute more commonly recognized as a Sig Heil. Other posts on their social media accounts feature swastikas. So the Canadian Anti-Hate Network sent a photographer and obtained images and video of the people who attended, including the organizers. They didn't announce in the venue in advance, which I guess makes sense, which has become a common tactic for white nationalist groups to avoid venues canceling on them or protests. On the morning of the event, organizers told paid ticket holders to meet at a public park where they were then redirected to the event. The venue, a cultural center in Vancouver, was unaware of the nature of the event. They say they were regrettably duped and that they would never knowingly rent to people promoting such vile beliefs. The speeches they had published from the event are mostly esoteric and philosophical in nature. Speakers talked about herbology, spirituality, and ideology, and describe these kinds of discussions as one way to improve the respectability of their movement and build community. Yeah. Oh, there's the Exiles of the Golden Age featuring the Golden One. Does anybody remember the Golden One? He used to be on YouTube. Pretty funny stuff. But yeah, no, it's pretty wild. This, like I say, Rachel Gilmore did a bit of a talk about this. Maybe see if I can find it. Close out. Videos. He was the headliner. Yeah. Unreal, eh? Fucking the golden one. Kind of a ridiculous person. Is this the one? I can't remember what it was called, so I'm not gonna just grab a random video. Got barred from entry into the country. Oh, is that right? That's good. Good. We don't really need them here. It's unfortunate. Like, I saw one, like you say, like, I think it was a CBC TikTok talking about, yeah, Vulcan 999, what a bunch of losers. Exactly. I saw like I say, a CBC TikTok talking about some of these guys, and some of them are like, they coach kids in diverse neighborhoods at like diverse clubs. Like, you kind of hope that they get fucking fired from coaching kids. Who are these guys? Yeah. So the organizers, photos from a variety of sources. Robertson de Chazal is a longtime neo-Nazi and a member of the Vinland Hammerskins since around 2012, as well as a former member of Blood and Honor, which was listed by the Canadian government as a terrorist entity in 2019. Photos from a variety of sources places him at several Hammerskins clubs in Europe, where he can also be seen wearing clothing bearing their signature crossed hammers. He has previously played in white power bands, including those that headlined a Hammerskins event in Hamilton in 2019. Velka 999. If there's an article, hopefully they get outed for sucking. Yeah. I think a lot of these guys got named, and some of them are probably, like, at this point, like, pretty hard for them to get jobs and stuff. But because they're well-known-ish, like this Josh Bruce, member of the Crew 38 feeder group of the Hammerskins and co-owner of Vinland Battleware, which is a neo-Nazi lifestyle and clothing brand. Where do you even, like, produce that stuff? Like, you must have to have like a machine at your own home, right? Because, or like a factory of your own or whatever, because none of the companies, I guess some of them wouldn't anyway. They wouldn't produce those shirts if you went on like a TeePublic or like what are some of the other ones, like those places where you can put your own designs in the shirts. You wouldn't think they would do that. But I guess you never know too. Like, some of that stuff gets passed by pretty easily. I have a Substack, and I know that they have a Nazi problem because I'm often being told that Nazi Temu Etsy shop. Yeah. Does Etsy like let Nazi paraphernalia be on it, or do they have to have their own website? Do credit cards work with Nazi online shops? I don't know. They're pretty strict about like adult stuff. So we've also got this Jesse Rankin. Some of these guys I think are not that hidden. Darren Lincoln, modeled for Vinland Battleware on their social media. They have social media accounts. They're Nazis. I guess Twitter, right? But yeah. No, it's not good. Identified attendees. There's like a list. This is what I saw on the CBC thing. They were calling these guys and asking them, well, like, did you know you were at this event? Why were you at this event? It was pretty good. But I don't have much more to say about that except, like, fuck Nazis. Like, that's, yeah, they suck. But I don't know. Thanks everybody for joining me tonight. I guess I'll see if I can switch my screen without screwing things up. There we go. That worked. Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. I really enjoy listening to this podcast. If you want to listen to it without me, don't feel the need that you have to come and wait until 2 weeks until you get to listen to the next episode. But also, I'm going to be online in 2 weeks listening to the next episode. I might even, I'll post on my social media or on YouTube if I'm going to do it again. If YouTube flags this for copyright, then I'll probably just only stream on Twitch. So hopefully I can let everybody know that when I find out. And yeah, I guess if you want to support what I do, I also do the interviews and I talk with Owen McDonald regularly. And yeah, everyone have a good night. And yeah, I do all that other stuff. So if you want to support me, you can do that at patreon.com/skepticalleftist. And other than that, or you can be a member on YouTube, or you can make sure to follow on Twitch, because just in case I can't do these streams on YouTube anymore. But have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much